Okay. All right, so this is as bizarre the second time around as it was the first time around. The last video that I made was about, poetic tactics to counter extraction. What is it? What is it for? What were the original aims of the project? So, fast forward a couple of months, and I realized in trying to put together this Miro board that would kind of explain the approach, the different readings, the library of things that I was sort of interacting with throughout this past year. But then I realized as I started making this Miro board that actually maybe it makes sense to start at the end, because the two most clear things were really at the beginning and at the end. I thought that I'd at least have a record, like a spoken record of the poems that I produced as a part of the project, that was in many ways kind of a compilation of citations from different poets and different thinkers and different writers and different artists that I ended up citing throughout a couple of the pieces at least. Yeah, let's give it a shot. I've tried to write this poem at my yellow desk by the sea. I've tried to write this poem in a red car by the mountains. I've tried to write this poem in the dusty stairs beneath my parents' home, in the clean, silent rooms of my lover's family, on a plane across continents, on trains to past lives. I tried to write this poem last year, and the year before, and this week, and today, but the words sit like weights at the edge of my tired tongue, and the tip of my leaking pen, and the edge of my dirty screen. What is the point of poetry when the words hold power, but not the kind that keeps the lights on, and the bills paid, and the kids fed, and the parents retired, and the in-laws relieved, and the politicians in check, and the markets, always the markets, moving forward? What is the point of poetry when it builds us stairs into the sky, but not the bricks beneath our feet and the roof over our heads? I don't really know if I should be putting down the approach behind this poem. Maybe, yeah, for the archive, I'll do it. So I think this one was really about the struggle of writing. I wrote a lot more when I was younger. I think part of what happened throughout this poetic tactics project was that I had an idea of how poetry could be used, but I actually wasn't writing a lot of poetry myself. And so I enrolled in a couple of courses. I started, really trying to write again, in a regular practice. And this poem is really a stitching together of all the places in which I tried to write. And it especially came during this, 2024, 2025 period that has just been so unbelievably chaotic that words didn't really seem to matter, to be honest. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how I feel about it now, but that was very much how I felt at the time. Adrian said poetics are the expressive linguistic means by which we human beings survive and interpret our collective and individual lives. Audrey said, poetry is how we help give name to the nameless so it can be thought. Anna told me that poets are careful with their words. The lesbians told me that poetry is a tactic for life, but the lesbians lived in poverty in the 70s, said Bryn. The 70s were a very hard time to be a lesbian. Would the 70s lesbian love the 21st century bisexual? Will I live in poverty too? Why does the artist's way tell us to manifest being rich? Does poetry have compound interests? Poetry is not a luxury. Rilke said poetry requires a descent into solitude and the desperation of necessity. C.A. Conrad wants me to stand in front of my door, naked and unafraid. David walked as lonely as a cloud. I have listened to men all my life, but Sisyphus pushed me down the hill and out of earshot. This one is perhaps most explicitly about some of the writers and thinkers that I was citing and reading from and thinking about. But it's also a lot more personal, I think. It's less descriptive. I think I was also really, for the first time, contemplating in my adult life, what it means to be queer, what it means to be bisexual, the kind of conflict that comes with that, the confusion, the politics. I think this poem is in many ways about wrestling with perceived binaries.
Let's see. So this one, 3.
Poetry allows us to say, I do not know, I cannot see, I am incomplete, and still continue and be made whole. I feel like this one kind of speaks for itself. Maybe it's very much a follow-up to the second one.
Yeah. This will be fun. 4.
Poetry is a tactic. Libraries are a tactic. Long runs and fresh air and long meals and cold swims, long conversations and fresh food, cold drinks are a tactic. Unions are a tactic. Strikes are a tactic. Cognitive dissonance, tactics. Memory work, pirate archives, protest, silence, screams, stealth bombers are a tactic. If organization is commitment, what are we committed to? Are there more poets made when we stop a war or create one? So maybe the thing to flag in this poem is if organization is commitment comes from a essay by the same name by Grace Lee Boggs, who was a organizer in Detroit, Michigan. I think worked in her city for something like 40 plus years. And I love that essay a lot, and I reread it constantly. I think I still really wonder what the role of a poet is that doesn't kind of wallow in self-reflection of one's own individual experiences, but also can extend to like the political milieu of our time. But also maybe because poets are so situated in their individual experience that you can't mistake one for the other. And I think I am still conflicted on this.
Yeah. Alright, last one.
Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror, empire and us. Just keep going. The words are maps, no feeling is final. I walked so silently, so silent, so slow, and sweet and sentimental that my feet became ears and I heard the sound of the Texas sunset, pump jack heartbeat, moving millions of years of crushed ambition through the veins of the world. I tried to write this poem from the bottom of the sea, but the roads less taken turned left at Mariana Trench, and because I could not stop for death, she kindly stopped for me. I carry your heart with me in my 5 poems, my song of despair, the possibility of violence, the possibility of hope, the way the shadow of the sun hits bright, unpainted concrete and an unfinished brick wall. Worship the strength and resilience of your own body. Pray to no one and nothing but the warm glow of small joys. There is no altar here. We are not in church. Maybe abstraction is the tool we use when the truth is too hard to say. So metaphor carves the outlines, and we color in the rest. Probably the one that this is closest to is poem number 2, meaning that this poem is very much almost like a collage of different thinkers, writers, my own written words, to create this sort of mega poem. Let Everything Happen to You, Beauty and Terror is from Rilke. The Words Are Maps is from Adrienne Rich. My Feet Became Ears is from the artist Pauline Oliveros. The Road Less Taken, Robert Frost, of course. I Carry Your Heart with Me in my 5 poems. My Song of Despair, Pablo Neruda. Almost like speaking to and around the thinkers that I was reading and the poets that I was reading. It almost feels like a conversation or a kind of collage. That's pretty much it. Okay. But next is, I think, going to be the Miro board. So I can finally like stitch together these influences and then put them all into a library.